Hey there, it's Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. Today's video is my March wrap-up, so I'm going to be telling you guys all about the books that I read in March, and we're just going to get started because I ramble. So the first book that I read in March was The Fate of the Tailing by Erica Johansson. This is the third and final book in the Tailing saga, and I hated it. Oh, I hated it so much. I really fucking hated it. So I gave this book 1 out of 5 stars, and I gave it that star rating purely because of its ending. Now, I would say that the majority of this book is a solid 3 out of 5 stars, maybe a 2.5-ish, and then the end happens and it goes all the way down. It made me so angry that I initially gave this book a 2-star and then I lowered it later because I was just so mad about it. Now, as this is the ending of the trilogy, I don't really want to say what it's about. The first book in the series follows a queen-to-be, Kelsey, as she is on her way to ascend the throne, and everyone's trying to kill her. It's a high fantasy book that is also a sci-fi futuristic book. And that is all I want to say about the plot of the series. Now, I do want to talk about this end because I feel like it's relevant. So I'm going to hold my hand up while I'm talking about the end spoiler, and then when I put my hand down, you can start watching again. So just like mute me while I talk about this because, wow, just the anger is real and I need to get it out. So you know that trope that we all hate, the "it was all a dream" trope? And the like? Yeah, kind of that. But in this, the main character goes back in time, changes one tiny thing, and then she goes back to her time and none of it ever happened because she's changed it and now it's like a utopia and none of the people that she ever met or knew or none of the things that she ever did in the whole 3 books, 500-page thing ever happened. It just makes me really angry that I wasted my time reading these 3 books and none of them happened. I'm so cross. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend that you read this book or this series. And if you do read this series, maybe stop at the first one or maybe stop at the second one, but definitely don't read the third one because I just really hated the ending. It was so bad. Next up, I read The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This is book 4 in the Raven cycle. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, and personally I can see why a lot of people rate this book lower than the rest of the series. I had a little bit of a hard time with the beginning of this book. I thought it was rather slow and it flicked between different perspectives a little bit too often for me to actually get invested in the story. I wanted to get invested, but because every chapter was a different perspective, I was like, oh wait, I was just getting into that person's story. Oh, we're over here now and we're doing this. And it was just a little bit too much to get me invested. But after about 100 pages, which is more than I like to be able to get into a book, it got better. It did. I enjoyed some of the things that happened with certain characters, and I did tear up a little bit towards the end, but you know, I'm an emotional lady. Of course I teared up. This is me trying not to give any sort of spoilers, but if you don't know what the Raven Cycle is about, it's about a group of friends that go in search of a dead Welsh king on a ley line. That's all I'm gonna say. Next up, I read Akane by Lynette Noni. So the premise of this book is that a girl called Alex is being sent to a boarding school while her parents go off on some archaeological dig, and she falls into this world called Akane, and she ends up going to this magical school, which is not necessarily a magical school because a lot of the things that we would determine as magic is scientific advancements that haven't happened on Earth. And I thought that was quite interesting. Honestly, this is a really good book to read if you were feeling nostalgic about a certain magic school book that we don't talk about anymore. So if you wanted a replacement for that, then this is fun. I mean, you do have to suspend your disbelief a lot at certain things that happen, and you just go, okay, well, this is a bit fun. Yeah. Also, there is a really fun library in there that is definitely unexplored and very interesting. I don't want to spoil anything about it. It is very interesting. The last thing I want to say about this book is that the main character is a little bit dumb. Sometimes she is not very observant, and she will give people the benefit of a doubt in a situation, and she shouldn't. And it's very obvious when she shouldn't, or it was at least very obvious to me. But if you look past that, it is very fun, And it was a cool story. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it so much that I also read the sequel this month. So I also read Raelia. I gave both of these books 4 out of 5 stars. I think that, again, you do have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, especially when it comes to how easily Alex's parents believe everything that she tells them happened in the previous year. There is a really cool field trip that happens in the second book that I really enjoyed reading about. It's a stealth and subterfuge field trip, and it's a lot of fun because it basically boils down to this mysterious teacher type fellow basically taking a bunch of kids and throwing them in the wilderness and being like, find your way back. So irresponsible, but fun. Anyway, let's talk about the next book that I read, and that was The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. I think this book had a really unique voice, and honestly, it just left me really sad. I have heard that the film of this was just very sad, and reading the book, I'm also just sad. But it was also very thought-provoking. I don't even know how to sort of describe this book in a way that will just not make it sound really depressing, but it's about a black woman who grew up being molested by the person that she called dad. And she basically gets given to this man to marry, who then abuses her and treats her like garbage. And then she meets some strong women along the way, and I don't want to say anything else because it will ruin the story. I really like the epistolary structure of this novel. I thought that was really interesting. I liked all the sections with the sister when she travels to Africa. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, it was just really sad for the most part, yeah. Next up, I read Slay by Brittany Morris. This book is about a girl called Kira who is a game developer for a game called Slay, which celebrates black excellence and features of black culture from all around the world, and it is a phenomenon, and then somebody gets killed because of something in the game. And one of the major themes of this book is people wanting to know who developed this game because they are demanding to know if it is racist, because they only allow black people to join Slay. I really loved this book. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I really like VR games as a concept, and I thought that the way that this one was done and how it incorporated culture was really fascinating. And it wasn't just American culture, it was black culture from all around the world. And there were references to different things from different places. I thought that was really fun. I also really liked how this book mixed real world issues with VR and fun fighting in games. I really appreciated it. And I really cared for what happened to all of the characters in this. If you haven't read this book yet, you really should. It is really great. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Cover. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It's a Hades Persephone retelling in a fantasy world where there are humans, elves, and other magical creatures, and then the realm of the dead. The main plot of this story is that the Elf King comes to collect a human queen every 100 years, and she goes across a wall with him to live with him. And nobody really quite knows what happens then. It is a Hades Persephone retelling. As we know, I am a sucker for those. Usually I really like them, and there were bits of this that I did like. I think it took a long time for the characters to actually start having any sort of relationship. I usually prefer it when the Hades type character is not so much of a dick, but this one is a little bit of a dick. But there's some fun things that happen. The side characters are like, meh. If you just want like a Hades Persephone retelling that is going to be easy for your brain, try this one. So next up I read Paranormalcy by Kirsten White. This is a Twilight era paranormal fantasy book, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I had a really good time with it. Shocked. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because it was just fun. I don't know why I enjoyed it so much, but I feel like the back of this book didn't really do a very good job of explaining what it was about and made it sound cheesier than it was. So this book actually, for quite a large portion of it, takes place in a paranormal investigation unit where the main character works because she has a special ability to be able to see through glamours in mythical creatures. I thought that was really interesting. There's a creepy stalker fae in here, which obviously I love because I need help. I don't know. I really shouldn't like Reth as a character as much as I do, but who knows why I do. It's a problem, I know. The other love interest character in this love triangle that is sort of a love triangle probably shouldn't be because, like, stalkers, no thank you. In real life, no. But in books, like, yeah. Anyway, I thought some of the characters were really interesting, and the way that the story goes is really good, and I definitely bought the second book, which I really wasn't expecting. I was literally just reading this one because I thought, oh, I'll just read it. It's been on my shelves for ages and then I had to buy the sequel because I was actually interested. The only thing that I would say is if you're going to read this, then you do have to ignore some of the cheesiness. There is a bit of cheesiness. They replace all the swear words with the word bleep. There is a reason for it, but it's still cheesy. The main character is really excited to go to high school because she's never been before, and she's like, ooh, lockers, and like, no. So there is that. But aside from that, it's really good, and I had a really good time with it, so yeah. If you want some of that nostalgia, then maybe try this. Next up I read Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron, and this is a Cinderella retelling in a world where Cinderella was real, she married the prince, and then every year they have a ball and now they marry off their daughters, 16, 17 or 18, and if they don't get married by that point in time, they're forfeit and basically get shipped off somewhere and nobody knows what happens to them. So this book was basically like, what are women's rights? There's a lot of domestic abuse in this book. As a figure of society, is people hate women in this book. Yeah. They also hate gay people in this book. Like, wow. It wasn't a fun read. It was, like, just kind of nasty. Like, the society was nasty. But there were bits of it that I did really like. I liked the strength of the main character. I thought she was really interesting. And you could certainly see why she did some of the actions that she did. Did find it a little bit predictable, though. I kind of guessed everything that was going to happen, so it wasn't much of a surprise. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars, which I'm really kind of disappointed in. I really wanted to like it a lot more than I did. It was just a bit too heavy and didn't surprise me enough to really be any higher than that. Next up I read Winter King by J.S. Dark and Juliana Hager. This was a book that I picked up because I was like, I just want something easy to read that's about Fae, and yeah, that's what I got. Essentially, the Winter Kingdom is under attack by some curse, and the only way to cure the curse is to abduct a human who is pure of heart and completely selfless and get them to sacrifice themselves. Yeah, I would have liked the characters to have personalities. That sounds really harsh, but they didn't. They really didn't. They were nothing characters. There were multiple side characters, but they were all nothing. All personality voids. It was very predictable, very surface level. You didn't really go very deep, and you know, it was what it was. If you want a very easy Fae book where you kind of know what's going to happen and you want to switch your brain off, then pick this one. That's all I can say. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was not great, but it also wasn't the worst thing I've ever read and was very easy to read. I don't know. Still on my Fae fix, the next book that I picked up was Wicked Lovely by Melissa Marr. This is a reread for me, so I won't talk about it too much. It's an urban fantasy about a girl who can see Fae, and then 2 of the Fae start stalking her, and there's court business that happens around that. And that's all I'll say about the plot. I think the most notable thing from this reread is that there's a character in here called Seth, and he is like the consent king. He is so concerned with consent. It's like, yes, this is what we want to see, please. Can we have more consent in any books, YA or whatever? He's like always trying to make sure that everyone's safe, sane, consensual. He's like getting tests done at the doctor's to show his partner, and I'm like, yes, can we see more of this, please? Anyway, I appreciated Seth. Keenan, as ever, remains an asshole. I love Donia, and, you know, Ash is fine. Also, if you were wondering, I still gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I don't think I can ever not give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I love it so much. And now on to the last book that I read in March. Does it surprise any of you that I read this book? It's A Court of Wings and Ruin. It's the 3rd book in the Akatar trilogy by Sarah J. Maas, and I loved it. I loved it. No one's surprised. Yeah, none of you are surprised that I read it, that I liked it, you know, whatever. I really liked the twists and the turns and what happened with all of the different characters. I thought was really fun. I'm not gonna lie, I am completely not unhappy with any plot armor that certain characters may have, and it ended the way that I would have liked it to have ended. I'm not mad about it. I'm never gonna be mad about it. I think these characters are real comfort characters for me, and you know, I understand some people don't like these books. Fair play to you. They have reached me and I love them, and I could definitely reread these books immediately, but that would be really annoying to watch on BookTube, so I won't do that. Don't worry, I won't do that yet. But yeah, anyway, I may have cried at the end a couple of times in different bits, and I definitely had a book hangover after I finished this one. I was really sad about finishing it. It was great. So now I just want to wrap up the Battle of the Books bracket tournament readathon that I did. I'm sure you're all very disappointed to hear that I did not win that, and the book that let me down was The Raven King. I really wanted that to go well. It did not go well. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and then Paranormalcy came in as the most surprising book of all and won that side of the bracket and completely fucked it over. I got the other side of the bracket all correct though, so, you know, at least there's that. I ended up reading 7 physical books, 3 audiobooks, and 2 ebooks this month. I had 1 1-star, 1 2-star, 3 3-stars, 4 4-stars, and 3 5-star books. The best book that I read this month was Core Wings of Ruin, Sorry Not Sorry, and the worst book that I read this month was The Fate of the Tearling, because no, it was bad. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye!